This time on Allies or Enemies, we are talking about My Shelfie. Our copy was provided by the publisher, but the thoughts are all our own. Designed by Matthew Dunstan and Phil Walker-Harding, My Shelfie is a 2 to 4 player light tile placement game, all about filling up a Calyx-esque shelving unit. You do this with the two main categories of shelf fillers: board games and stuff that you're pretending to yourself will stay in your shelves, but will be removed when you get more board games. Stuff like books, plants, and taxidermied cats. Sean wrote that. I think they are perfectly alive shelf cats. Also, your bookcase, like all the best bookcases, is vertical. So as you draft these tiles, you get to drop them into place, Connect 4 style. But we'll come back to how well that actually works after we look at how it plays.
My Shelfie is pretty simple. At the start of the game, you will randomly put a bunch of shelf items on the central board and take an empty bookcase. Then each turn, players will draft 1 to 3 tiles following 2 rules. The tiles have to be connected in a straight line, and they must all have at least one edge exposed at the start of your turn. Then you drop all your new tiles into one column of your bookcase in whatever order you want. When you place your new stuff, you need to keep a few things in mind: your secret personal bookcase goal, the 2 shared goals, and the overall goal of trying to group like colors together. If ever the central board has 4 or fewer tiles, you refill it. When someone's bookcase is full, you finish the round and add up all of the points from personal goals, shared goals, and groups, and then the player with the prettiest shelfie is named.
The big draw here are the bookcases, and these little plastic calyxes work pretty well. The stand keeps them sturdy, and this little squeezer bar at the top keeps them pretty tight, and it really does look cool. This could have easily been a flat board, but a game about shelves needed to be vertical, and it adds a ton. Dropping in pieces is just as satisfying as it was when you were a kid, connecting 4. The stuff on the tiles is also good, especially the board game tiles with shoutouts to games like Bang and Carcassonne. The colors are easy to tell at a glance, but if you do have trouble, all of the colors have one specific kind of item, so it shouldn't be a problem for anyone. The only tricky is the setup needed for the market board. That couple of minutes is fine off the start, but it does slow the flow when you need to refill mid-round. However, we don't really have an alternate suggestion, so we are happy to chalk it up to a necessary hiccup.
This is a 20-minute play it back-to-back kind of game, so most of the depth is in the ever-changing puzzliness of it, but there are a few key variables that will very much affect your strategy. The first is your secret player goal, which is really just a map of where to put one of each of the 6 colors of tiles. But it's worth a big 12 points if you get them all, and it should definitely influence your grouping plans. The second are the shared goals, which will be worth more to whomever completes them first. And these are mostly pretty tricky, so you often need to choose which to go for and maybe even leave the other. Also making all of that more difficult is that everyone can see exactly what you're doing on a big vertical framework, and they can see exactly what is available, which leads to some strategic drafting, both in what you're taking for yourself, taking away from others, and also in what your choices might open up for the next player.
Because of the drafting aspect, the game does change a bit at different counts, but it works well at all of them. Functionally, the only thing that changes with more players is the 3 and or 4 player spaces on the drafting board get filled up with a few extra tiles. But the more important difference is that more players are taking all of those tiles. At 2 players, you can sometimes plan a couple of turns ahead, especially if you leave something you know your opponent wants in order to get something you want even more. Or you can purposely block off a section to create a bit of a cat and mouse game over that tempting clump of 3 greens. But at 4 players, that planning is almost impossible. So the game is much more read and react to what is available on your turn. Also, 3 other people are competing for those goals and for you to not accomplish them. But regardless of count, the pace will stay super speedy. So while games will take a bit longer at higher counts, it stays well within the light and quick range.
We started playing My Shelfie on Board Game Arena, and it took a few plays to really get hooked, but once we started to get better at it and see some of the strategy under the surface, we kept coming back to it. And that was without the vertical board. With the vertical board, it really comes to life. We had forgotten how satisfying dropping a thing into a thing is. It's super satisfying. And looking at the shelf at the end is great. You will want to take a shelfie of your shelfie. However, for all of our warm feelings towards it, it is still a pretty simple tile placement game. So it may not be a fit for folks that want a lot of depth or who want something that is going to massively shake up the genre. But for people who like a bit of fun toyiness with their games and are in the market for a quick, fun filler from a pair of designers who are masters at that sort of thing, this shelfie is definitely worth building. And that is it. Have you played My Shelfie? What did you think? And what other tile placement games would you recommend? Also, please do like and subscribe, and hopefully we'll see you all next time for another game.